Hello students. Today we are going to study the 17th chapter of Aristotle's Poetics. Let us start. In constructing the plot and working it out with the proper diction, the poet should place the scene as far as possible before his eyes. In constructing the plot means in preparing the storyline of his drama, in preparing the structure of incidents in his drama and working it out with the proper diction means filling those incidents with proper language. The poet should place the scene as far as possible before his eyes. So the poet means the dramatist should place his drama, should keep his drama in front of his eyes. He means to say that the dramatist should act like a spectator or like an audience. He should imagine that if he were the member of audience or he were the spectator of his own drama, what would he like? How would he react? So, in this way, by acting like a spectator or like an audience, he can prepare his plot in a better manner. In this way, seeing everything with the utmost vividness as if he were a spectator of the action, he will discover what is in keeping with it and be most unlikely to overlook inconsistencies. In this way, seeing everything with the utmost vividness. So, by acting like an audience. In this way means by acting like an audience, seeing everything with the utmost vividness. So, if he acts like an audience, he can observe everything. He can observe all the incidents of his drama with utmost vividness, means with utmost reality, with utmost liveliness, very realistically. So he can observe his own drama very realistically as if he were a spectator of the action. So he will act as a spectator or as a member of audience, and he will observe that drama very realistically, and he will discover what is in keeping with it. He will discover, he will find out what is in keeping with it means what is suitable for it. What is in keeping with it means what is suitable for it, what is suitable for his drama, and be most unlikely to overlook inconsistencies. And it will be very possible for him that he will keep in mind the weaknesses, the drawbacks of the drama. So he will not neglect them. If he acts like an audience, he will not overlook, means he will not neglect the inconsistencies, means the drawbacks, the weaknesses of his story, the weaknesses of his drama. The need of such a rule is shown by the fault found in Carcinus. So, here Aristotle gives the example of a drama, Carcinus, and there is a fault, there is a mistake, there is a drawback. So, by observing that drawback, Aristotle says that there is a need of such a rule. There is the need of, and which rule? That the poet, that the dramatist should act as a spectator of his own drama. So, this rule must be followed, and Aristotle proves it by showing here a mistake which is visible in the drama Carcinus. And what is that mistake? Amphiaraus was on his way from the temple. So, in that drama Carcinus, there is a character named Amphiaraus. He was coming back from the temple. This fact escaped the observation of one who did not see the situation. So, he is coming. He is coming from the temple, Amphiaraos is coming from the temple, and was this goes unnoticed by a character who should have observed him. The character in the drama who should have obviously, very clearly, who should have noticed this fact, he doesn't do it. He doesn't notice this fact. On the stage, however, the piece failed. And because of this mistake, this obvious mistake, this clear mistake, the drama was a failure on the box office. The drama was a failure on stage. The audience being offended at the oversight. What was the reason of the failure of this drama? The audience were offended. The audience, the spectators, they felt hurt. At the oversight means at not noticing that character. The character who should have observed, who should have noticed Amphiaraos coming back from the temple, and this oversight, this negligence was not accepted by the audience. That's why this piece, this drama, proved to be a failure on stage. Again, the poet should work out his play to the best of his power with appropriate gestures. Another thing which should be kept in mind is that the poet, means the dramatist, should work out his play to the best of his power. He should prepare his drama, he should construct his drama with his utmost capabilities, with his utmost faculties. He should use his intellectual faculties to prepare his drama with appropriate gestures. So he should keep in mind that he has to add appropriate gestures, means suitable body language in the drama. Because it is to be performed on stage, there should be suitable body language also. For those who feel emotion are most convincingly through natural sympathy with the characters they represent. Those who feel emotion means the actors who can feel the emotion, who can identify themselves with the characters that they are going to represent on stage, who feel emotion are most convincing. So they can represent those characters in a convincing manner, in a realistic manner, through natural sympathy with the characters they represent. So if they are able to sympathize with those characters that they are going to represent on stage, if they are able to identify with those characters, only then the actors can reproduce those characters in a convincing manner, in a realistic manner, in a plausible manner. And one who is agitated storms. One who is agitated, the person who is agitated means excited. A person who is excited storms. Storms means he thunders. He talks in a very loud voice on the stage. A person, one who is agitated means the person who is excited, he talks in a storming manner, in a tempestuous manner on the stage. One who is angry rages. So, one who is angry, a person who is angry, he rages. He talks in an angry manner. He roars on stage with the most lifelike reality, in a very realistic manner. So, if the actor is going to represent an agitated character, an excited character, or an angry character, he will have to storm. He will have to speak in a loud manner, in a roaring manner. Only then he will look lifelike. Only then he will look realistic. Hence, poetry implies either a happy gift of nature or a strain of madness. Hence, in this way, poetry here stands for dramatic poetry, drama, implies either a happy gift of nature or a strain of madness. So, it means two things. Poetry implies means poetry involves two things, either a happy gift of nature. So, at one place, it is a pleasing gift of nature, or at other places, it is a strain of madness. It is a fit of madness. In the one case, a man can take the mold of any character. So, when it is a gift of nature, the actor can take the shape of any character. The actor can reproduce any character very realistically, and in the other, he is lifted out of his proper self. So, when he is representing a strain of madness, when he is representing a fit of madness on the stage, he is lifted out of his proper self, means he is transported out of himself, he is transformed out of himself, he doesn't remain himself, he becomes something else because he is representing a fit of madness. As for the story, whether the poet takes it ready made or constructs it for himself, he should first sketch its general outline and then fill in the episodes and amplify in detail. As for the story, so far as the plot is concerned, the structure of incidents is concerned, whether the poet takes it ready made or constructs it for himself. So there are two possibilities. Firstly, the poet can borrow his storyline, the poet can borrow his plot from history, from some legend, or from some other story. And the other possibility is that he can invent his story himself. He can invent his storyline, he can invent his plot. He should first sketch its general outline. So, the first thing that the dramatist should do, he should make an outline of the story. He should make a sketch of the story and then fill in the episodes and amplify in detail. So, after sketching a general storyline, a rough storyline, the poet should fill up the episodes, the incidents, and he should give the dialogues to the characters, and all the work of amplification, all the work of elaboration should be done afterwards. The first thing that the poet should do, he should construct his plot, he should sketch his storyline. The general plan may be illustrated by the Iphigenia. So here Aristotle is giving the example of the drama Iphigenia, how the dramatist should work out his plan, chalk out his plan. A young girl is sacrificed. So this is the outline, that a young girl is sacrificed. A young girl is going to be sacrificed, and you know who is that young girl? That is Iphigenia. So in the beginning, when the dramatist is constructing his plot, the dramatist is constructing his story, he is not giving the name to that girl, he is just laying the outline and he is writing that a young girl is sacrificed. So, but all of you know that the girl is Iphigenia. She disappears mysteriously from the eyes of those who sacrificed her. So, in that drama, in that story, the girl disappears, the girl vanishes mysteriously, secretly, supernaturally from the eyes of those who sacrificed her. So, the people who are going to sacrifice her, they are unable to see her and she is vanished. She is transported to another country. So, from that place of sacrifice, from that altar of sacrifice, she is mysteriously, she is supernaturally taken away to another country where the custom is to offer up all strangers to the goddess. And in that country, there is a custom, there is a law that any stranger who comes to that country, he is sacrificed on the altar of the goddess. To this ministry, she is appointed. She is appointed to the ministry of sacrifices. It means that she is appointed as a priestess, as a female priestess on the altar of that goddess to whom strangers are sacrificed. Some time later, her own brother chances to arrive. After some time, her own brother arrives in that country, and you know the name of the brother is Orestes. You have already been mentioned, you have already been told about the story of Orestes and Iphigenia. So, you know that the brother is Orestes. The fact that the oracle for some reason ordered him to go there is outside the general plan of the play. So, the fact is that the reality is that Orestes, who is the brother of Iphigenia, he had been advised by the oracle to visit that country. He himself hasn't come to that country. He hasn't come to that country by his own will. Instead, he had been advised by the oracle to visit that country. But this advice of the oracle is not represented on the stage. The purpose again of his coming is outside the action proper. So, the purpose, the aim, or the reason why he has come to visit this country is not mentioned in the drama, is not displayed in the drama. However, he comes, he is seized, and when on the point of being sacrificed, reveals who he is. But he comes to that country, he visits this country, he is seized, he is arrested, he is captured. And when on the point of being sacrificed. So, as is the rule of this country, any stranger who visits this country, he is sacrificed. So, Orestes is also an stranger and he is going to be sacrificed. But at the last moment, he reveals who he is. He discloses his identity. The mode of recognition may be either that of Euripides or of Polyidus. So, the mode of recognition means the method of revelation may be either that of Euripides or of Polyidus. So, there can be two methods of revelation, and the one method is of Euripides and another method is of Polyidus. So, Polyidus in his drama, in whose play he exclaims very naturally. So, in the drama of Polyidus, he exclaims, he means Orestes, exclaims very naturally, "So it was not my sister only, but I too who was doomed to be sacrificed." So, this is the exclamation, this is the statement of Orestes. He says, when he is going to be sacrificed, he says that it was not the destiny of only my sister, but it was my destiny also that I am going to be sacrificed. My sister was sacrificed on the altar, and I am also going to be sacrificed. And by that remark, he is saved. So when he makes this statement, his sister Iphigenia at once recognizes him and he is saved. He is not sacrificed. After this, the names being once given, it remains to fill in the episodes. So, when the outline is composed, when the plot is constructed, the dramatist should give names. It remains to fill in the episodes. The dramatist gives names to his characters and then he fills the episodes. Then he fills the incidents in the drama, or then he provides dialogues to his characters. We must see that they are relevant to the action. So the episodes, the incidents, or the dialogues, they should be relevant to the action. They should be proper to the storyline. They should befit the story. They should befit the plot. They should be suitable to the plot. Irrelevant dialogues or irrelevant incidents should not be included in the plot, in the drama. In the case of Orestes, for example, there is the madness which led to his capture. So, Aristotle gives the example of Orestes, and in his case, the reason of his capture, the reason of his arrest was his madness and his deliverance by means of the purificatory rite. And his deliverance means his freedom took place because of a purificatory rite, because of a purgatory ritual. In the drama, the episodes are short. So, in this drama, the episodes, the incidents are small, they are not lengthy. But it is these that give extension to epic poetry. So, although the episodes in this drama are small, but if they are extended, they are sufficient to make an epic. They can be extended to make it an epic. Thus, the story of the Odyssey can be stated briefly. So, on the one hand, Aristotle says that the story of Iphigenia and Orestes can be expanded in order to make an epic. On the other hand, the story of Odyssey, that is an epic in itself, its story can be narrated briefly. It can be constructed. So, this is the story of Odyssey. A certain man is absent from home for many years. So, a certain man, he is Odysseus. He is absent from his home for many years. He is jealously watched by Poseidon and left desolate. He is jealously watched by Poseidon. Poseidon is the god of oceans. So, the god of oceans, Poseidon, is jealous of him and he drives him away to a desolate place, to a deserted place, to a lonely place. So, when Odysseus is sailing in the ocean, sailing in the sea, he is driven away by Poseidon, the god of oceans, to a desolate place, to a deserted place. Meanwhile, his home is in a wretched plight. So, when he is away from home, when Odysseus is away from his home is in a wretched place. His home is in a poor condition. Suitors are wasting his substance. So, there are many suitors, means many claimants, many people who claim on his property, or In other words, you can say there are suitors. You must have heard the story of Penelope. She was the wife of Odysseus. So there are many suitors for his wife. They come to woo his wife. So here this word suitors can refer to those wooers also. Suitors are wasting his substance. So this expression can be interpreted in two ways. There are many wooers to his wife, or you can say that there are many claimants for his property, and plotting against his son. So the suitors, they are hatching conspiracy against his son. At length, tempest tossed, he himself arrives. So at length means in the end, finally, tempest tossed means driven by tempests, driven by storms. He himself arrives. He himself returns to his home. He himself returns to his country. He makes certain persons acquainted with him. So he introduces himself to some people in his country. He attacks the suitors with his own hand. So that person, Odysseus, attacks the suitors, attacks the claimants who have come to claim his property, or the wooers who have come to woo his wife, and is himself preserved while he destroys them. So in the process of killing or driving away the suitors, or in the process of driving away his suitors, claimants, he is himself safe. He kills all of them, or he destroys them, or he drives them away, but he himself remains safe. This is the essence of the plot. So, this is the main plot, this is the main story. The rest is episode. So, everything else, this is the main outline of the epic Odysseus, and the rest is episode means the remaining things, they are just incidents of that plot. There are some other incidents, some other references are there, some many characters are there, many incidents are there, but the main storyline is this. So it is the brief story of Odysseus, of the epic Odyssey. Aristotle means to say that Odyssey is a voluminous epic, but its story, its plot can be narrated briefly in this way. On the other hand, the story of Iphigenia and Orestes, it can be expanded in order to make an epic. So here the 17th chapter comes to an end. Thank you.